Which is your good side?
Well, you want to go on that seat? Oh, no, I'm in charge.
You're in charge. Oh, there you go. There's
See?
a take
Left-hand
charge kind
seat.
of guy.
Okay,
So
that's better.
So let me tell you just how smart the two of us are. Think back to 2008, 2009. I know the economy is like in a tailspin, and organizations are wondering whether they can even survive. So what do? We change jobs. I go to AOPA, you go to Piper, 2009, I think it was.
That's correct.
Running operations. But not only survived with Simon Caldecot there, it began to thrive in many ways. And it was a tough economic time, but Simon brought a vision. And in 2011, the board asked him to become president and CEO. And from the moment he took that job, and we were watching, he said, this company is dedicated to building aircraft that can be used to train pilots. And we're very grateful for that, because honestly, this industry needed that kind of leadership and that kind of statement. And so my first question, I guess, is how did you come to that view and to that vision at such a difficult period of time?
It was actually an easy solution to a tough problem, Craig. Obviously, Piper originally hired me in 2009, as you know, as chief of production for what was going to be their Piper jet. And it was a great program. It would have been a great plane. I was involved heavily with the design and changing it from the Piper jet to what was going to be the Altair. However, when I took over in 2011 as CEO, and now responsible for the finances of the company, the numbers didn't look good. And I treat my shareholders' money just like my own, and I didn't see a return. So I had a tough decision to shut down the jet program, but the solution was somewhat easy, because in my office I had a picture of a Piper Cub on the wall. And the Piper Cub is where it all started. And Piper, since about 2006, had really been ignoring the training business. I said, that's our heritage. We've got a great product lineup, albeit they were a bit out of date because the engineers had all been focusing on the new fancy jet stuff. So we had some catch-up to do, but it was really an easy answer in that our heritage is in training products, and we, Piper Aircraft, need to get back into that. Not only that, but back in 2011 when I took over, the Boeing forecast at that time was a need for 535,000 new pilots over the next 20 years. And you heard Dale yesterday talk about where it is in the latest Boeing forecast. It's gone up almost 80,000 more pilots. So the problem's getting worse. People are not buying enough planes, and we're not teaching enough students to meet that demand. So there's a big opportunity there. So for me, it was sort of a no-brainer.
That's good. So I have to ask you the question that all of us have asked ourselves at one time or another: which is the better training aircraft, one with the high wing or the low wing? I have a sense here how you're going to answer it, but what I'm interested in is why.
Actually, it's interesting. I know Redbird did a study years ago, but it's the low wing. I mean, all the airlines. How many people here fly on Boeings and Airbus? They have low wings. Learning what you're going to be flying around in. What people are comfortable with. It's what Dale was talking about yesterday. Make them feel comfortable. Put your wife in a low wing plane. Just imagine your wife sitting in the cockpit there looking at, we've got no wings, husband.
I had to ask. I just had to ask. So you had the vision in 2011. Talk about the path you've been on. I mean, it's a really interesting one, and it's been a very slow recovery for the nation. But talk about the path that Piper has been on with training aircraft, and then we'll talk about some of the other aircraft.
Sure. So the philosophy was obviously, let's go back into the training business. We need to upgrade our products. So step one is we actually did a survey of a number of flight schools, both nationally and internationally, to try and find out what they really needed. And the majority of them wanted a glass cockpit. So we decided to upgrade the Archers, the Seminoles, and even the Seneca to Garmin G1000, bring them up to date. We did that. At the same time, my philosophy wasn't just about, well, a flight school wants 50 new planes, let's get an order, build 50 and deliver them. It was about creating partnerships and long-term partnerships. I would rather a flight school ordered 50 planes from me over, say, 8 or 10 years, and we have a long-term agreement. I might only provide him 4 or 5 a year, but if I can get 10 or 15 flight schools to do that, it creates a foundation for my business then of training aircraft. And that's the approach we've taken. We've gone out to a lot of the flight schools, particularly the college flight schools, and entered into long-term agreements with them. UND is a good example, obviously. That was a big win. And it isn't just selling planes. It's some things that we do from a support point of view, dedicated support, scholarships. UND, we've actually set up a foundation scholarship with UND. So we'll be providing, funds to help more students learn to fly. So
I wanted to ask you about that because that was a nice win because you got back into UND, right?
That's right.
What turned it? Was it what things that you were mentioning?
I think it was the whole package. It was the whole team that was engaged. It took a lot of hard work by the team. It isn't all about price. It's about relationships, a big part of it, and making sure that we understand the people at UND, what their needs are, and showing that we can meet their needs.
I think that you've gotten into an area that's one in which you have some great insights, and that's the whole customer experience and customer relationship with the schools, but also with the owners of your aircraft. And how has that changed over the last few years?
Well, I think from myself down, I make sure that everybody treats our customers with respect and builds a relationship. We tend to go, I think, a lot further than some of the competition in terms of how we treat our customers. And I personally went up to UND 3 or 4 times before we secured that deal, just to show that I personally am interested in it. Same with customers. Whenever a customer comes to our facility or a potential customer, as long as I'm on site, I'll make myself available to go and meet with that customer because they're the most important thing we've got. Well,
and your participation in the shows and the presence there at Piper has been, I know, much appreciated. How about what happens with the student that's flown in the Piper aircraft? How do you move them along to continue their flying? Katie made a very important point last night about how we know that there's sort of a plateau. When you become a private pilot, you've achieved the goal that you set for yourself. You celebrate. If you got a family, the family celebrates. But now what comes next? And,
right.
How do you bring them into this community to remain an active pilot?
That's a great question. And obviously, that was an element of our thoughts about being back in training. Somebody learns in a Piper. Hopefully, if they can afford it, they're going to buy a Piper as well. And we have the full product lineup for that. Everything from, obviously, the Archer, right the way up to our latest aircraft, the Piper M600. And that's what we ultimately want. We want people flying around in our larger planes.
So I gotta ask you, actually, it's an interesting cycle. You came in looking at a jet. The M600 is the newest offering. Tell us a little bit about that. That is an exciting plane.
So it is an exciting program. Obviously, I had a lot of engineers that were disappointed when we shut down the jet program, but we still had a customer base out there that was asking for more. And really, when you got down to it and you really talked to those customers, what they wanted, the Piper Meridian, unfortunately, was short on payload range. And they wanted to be able to carry 800 pound, 1,000 miles. So we set a charter for the engineers and said, go take the Meridian as the base airplane and make it go 1,000 miles carrying at least 800 pounds. And in fact, we stretched their goals a little bit more to make sure we achieved it. But we've achieved it. We also wanted to increase the VMO on the aircraft, the dive speed, from 188 knots on a Meridian to 250 knots. And we've done it. So we have a plane now that's very capable. But at the same time, I challenged my team. I said, we want the latest in avionics, and we want a new interior that looks different and feels different. So we added those to the mix, and we came out with the Piper M600. And we certified it on June the 17th this year. We started deliveries on June the 13th, and number 10 delivery is scheduled to take place next week. So by the end of the year, we'll have done over 20 deliveries. So we're pretty excited.
Congratulations on that. It's a great, great program. So you're not just content to actually run a company. You've also now taken on a major responsibility for the industry as, as the chairman of the General Aviation Manufacturers Association. Tell us a little bit about what you hope to accomplish at GAMA over the next year.
Okay, so I think I'm day 5 into the job, Craig. Still shell-shocked. Obviously, GAMA is a great organization, as you know, and does a lot up on the Hill to make sure that the regulations are what we want. Big part, of course, is the Part 23 rewrite the Revitalization Act, some of the things that have got stalled recently with by Bill Schuster, he sort of tagged it onto his air traffic reorganization. A little bit unfair. So one of the big things I'm going to try and do this year is at least break those apart so that we get what we need and we're not held hostage. But there's a lot of other things. I mean, Gamma obviously is interested, just like the rest of the audience here, in how do we get more people into general aviation. And that's going to be one of my big themes this year. Is I want to drive that and make sure that all the organizations, including Gamma, are doing just that. And I mean, I know MBAA and Gamma partner on the No Plane, No Gain. We continue to do that, and we'll be having our breakfast for that next week at the MBA in Orlando. But we've got to find ways to encourage more people to use general aviation, whether it's for personal use or for things like medevac, evacuation. Just promote general aviation. Get more people involved in it. That in itself is going to generate more need for pilots. The big challenge I see still, though, is getting the next generation of students and kids wanting to fly. There's some interesting programs that I listened to yesterday here. Greg Rourke with the Aspen Alliance. That's a great program. The younger you start them, hopefully the more likely they are to get involved with aviation. And in fact, I just got a text last night from my daughter. I have 3 grandkids, and whenever they come down to Vero Beach, they always want to come to Piper to see the airplanes. So they sit in the airplane. So my grandson yesterday got a new shirt, has a picture of an airplane on it, and it's a bit like a Red Hawk because it has points on it telling you where's the aileron and where's the various components. So I'm encouraging my grandkids, and hopefully at least one of them will go into aviation.
Well, there's no question about your commitment. I will tell everybody here, Gamma is one of the most respected advocacy organizations in Washington for general aviation, and to have somebody who leads one of the great GA companies at the helm and one who thinks so much about training is a great thing for us. We ask you to kind of step out of the audience and spend a little bit of time with us, and we're about out of time, but I don't want you to leave without giving you a chance to sort of share with them how to interact with Piper. What's the best way to connect with you and your team?
Oh, that's a great question. Certainly, we actually sell our larger planes through a dealer network, but our trainers, we like to deal direct with the flight schools, and we do direct sales. So anybody who's interested in partnering with Piper or certainly want to buy new planes or are having issues, please reach out to us. Our numbers are on the web page. I've met a number of people here this week and picked up some good ideas. But we're pretty accessible, and if any time anybody has trouble getting hold of one of my people, don't hesitate to call me personally. I tell every customer that, by the way, when they pick up an aircraft, I personally give them my business card and say, if for some reason my team or one of my dealers doesn't support you, feel free to call me. And by the way, I'll tell you a good story. I don't even need to be in the office. It's sort of automated. I actually had and this is a true story, I had a customer who picked up a new Mirage in 2013. About 4 weeks after he took delivery, it developed a small hydraulic leak. The dealer that he was using obviously looked at it, went to our parts people, 6 weeks to get a part for a brand new airplane. Well, guess what? He tried all the different numbers. He called my office. I was traveling. This is a true story. I was traveling, but my assistant was there. She took the message. She said, "What's the problem?" She said, "Leave it with me. I'll have somebody call you within 10 minutes. She got hold of the right person in the organization. That person called her. That part was shipped out of the factory that night, and his aircraft was back in the air the next day.
Great. That's a great story and a great commitment. Simon, you've come here and spent your time with us. Thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome, Craig. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody.
Appreciate
Thank
all you
you.
do. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig.